Hello there, you're watching All 24 News live from Algiers. Coming up next are the headlines. Algerian president reiterates via phone call his support to his Turkish and Syrian counterparts after the devastating quakes that killed and injured thousands. Also coming up, the death toll from the Syrian and Turkish earthquake is still on the rise amid intensive rescue efforts to find survivors. Russia confirms progress of its forces in strategic Bakhmut, taking control of 7 towns, while Ukraine says fighting is fierce. Also ahead in our news, new nationwide strikes disrupted France, while tens of thousands of demonstrators marched in a third round of protests against planned pension reforms. Hello again and welcome to the program. First, Turkey-Syria quakes file. First in our topical news, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, held a telephone conversation with his Turkish counterpart, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, in which he reiterated on his behalf and on behalf of all Algerian people, sincere condolences to the victims of the devastating earthquake in Turkey. For his part, the Turkish president thanked the President of the Republic for his noble and fraternal position of solidarity and his assistance during the painful tragedy. Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune renewed Algeria's willingness to provide and send all required assistance to Turkey. And in a related story, Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune reiterated his support to Syrian people as well after the devastating earthquake that struck the country. President Tebboune, during a phone call with his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad, renewed on his behalf and on behalf of all Algerian people his sincere condolences for the victims and their families. For his part, the Syrian head of state thanked the Algerian president for his noble and brotherly position of solidarity, expressing his great appreciation, especially since Algeria was the first to respond to the call for help. Another Algerian airplane landed on Aleppo airport as part of the humanitarian aid to the affected country. The Algerian rescue teams on Tuesday began relief operations in the city and neighboring areas after the violent earthquake. More details with Islam Said.
Algeria took the lead among countries in sending humanitarian aid to Syria, where many areas in the northern part of the country have been devastated by the earthquake, which resulted in the deaths of hundreds on Monday morning. Right after the disaster, 3 Algerian airplanes laden with tons of humanitarian aid, as well as rescue teams and medical staff on board, embarked to Syria to participate in the relief and search operations.
These tasks fall within the framework of humanitarian aid due to the earthquake that affected the sister country Syria. This aid is represented in foodstuffs that have wide needs for simple citizens.
We made all the necessary arrangements for Algerian mission, which includes the place of residence, cars and all mechanism, in addition to work teams accompanying them, in order to exchange expertise with this team.
Without any delay, rescue teams were deployed to search for any survivors under debris in Aleppo on Tuesday. The toll is on the rise with at least 1,932 deaths. The Syrian Red Crescent has called for the US and the EU to lift sanctions to open humanitarian corridors to reach its affected areas, which are already suffering war repercussions that rip the country.
The economic sanctions imposed on our country are the main obstacle that prevents the arrival of heavy equipment. I appeal to the European Union and all the members of the European Union to lift the economic sanctions on Syria.
The earthquake has had an extraordinary impact. Algeria's immediate response has defied Western embargo over Syria, which is still waiting for Western countries to overcome the sanctions and realize that many people are praying for help under debris.
In a statement to All 24 News Channel, the Director General of Communication at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Abdelhamid Abdawi, has underlined that Algeria was the first country to take part of rescue operations, noting that many countries hailed Algeria's initiative. Let's take a listen.
Since the beginning of the catastrophe, both in Turkey and Syria, Algeria has expressed its compassion and solidarity with the victims and with the peoples of Turkey and Syria. And we have sent many planes, both either to Turkey or Syria, to express our solidarity to the peoples of these two countries.
Syria's ambassador to the United Nations said on Tuesday that any outside assistance for earthquake victims must be done in coordination with Damascus and delivered from within Syria, not across the Turkish border. Mr. Sabag noted Syria had suffered a lot during the last decade. Damascus has long opposed a humanitarian operation before that has delivered aid into Syria from Turkey. He said the assistance should be delivered from inside Syria, stressing that it was a matter of sovereignty.
We are requesting him to mobilize all UN efforts in helping Syria after this devastating situation caused by the earthquake hit the Syrian Arab Republic early this morning.
Bodies of people killed in the earthquake in southern Turkey on Monday are being left out on the streets as the hunt continues for survivors. More than 7,000 people are known to have died in Turkey and northern Syria, which was also devastated by the quake. The United Nations warned that thousands of children may be among the dead. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, for his part, announced a 3-month state of emergency in the 10 provinces worst affected by the earthquake. More details in Usama Ayadi's report.
More than 5,000 dead and 28,000 wounded is the latest number of victims after strong earthquakes hit Turkey and Syria. The toll in Turkey alone has reached 4,544 people, and the injured nearly 24,000 so far. As for Syria, the number of victims throughout the country has risen to more than 1,800 dead and about 4,000 injured in the provinces of Aleppo, Latakia, Hama, Idlib and Tartus.
Currently, we have 3,549 deaths and 22,168 injuries. Our biggest consolation is that more than 8,000 of our citizens have been rescued alive from the rebels so far.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan declared a 3-month state of emergency covering Turkey's 10 southern provinces hit by the devastating earthquakes and labeled it as a disaster zone in a move meant to bolster rescue efforts.
We decided to declare a state of emergency based on the authority given by Article 119 of the Constitution, so that the search and rescue activities and all the subsequent works can be carried out rapidly.
Erdogan revealed that 70 countries had offered to help in search and rescue operations as Turkey planned to open up hotels in the tourism hub of Antalya to temporarily house people impacted by the quakes. Erdogan confirmed that at least 3,549 people lost their lives in the unfortunate ordeal.
We have received offers of assistance from 70 different countries and 14 international organizations. We spoke with 18 heads of state and government who called us on the phone.
Officials from the World Health Organization warned that some 23 million people, including 1.4 million children, were likely to be impacted in both countries following the earthquake and its aftershocks that reduced thousands of buildings to dust.
Potentially 23 million people are exposed, including around 5 million vulnerable populations, including more than 350,000 older people, 1.4 million children, Civilian infrastructure and potentially health infrastructure have been damaged across the affected region, mainly in Turkey and northwest Syria.
Numbers of deaths and injuries in both affected countries are on the rise. Meanwhile, rescue teams are doubling efforts despite harsh conditions to dig trapped people out from rubble. Many mobile hospitals have arrived on the ground to ease the pressure on local hospitals and accelerate aids for the injured.
Algerian civil defense and humanitarian aid teams sent to Turkey arrived on Tuesday in the city of Gaziantep to start their rescue operations. The rescue team extracted a girl from under the rubble in the Ad-Yaman region, as well as a live infant and his mother. The team also managed to recover the bodies of 2 dead people, a man and a woman, and the rescue operation is still underway. A winter storm and freezing temperatures has been hampering those working desperately in a race against time to free people from the rubble, with the cold weather making the need to reach trapped survivors even more urgent. The details with Sofian Kinturi.
Rescue efforts are being hampered by the weather after magnitude 7.9 earthquake, and its strong aftershocks struck southwest Syria and southern Turkey, killing thousands and injuring many more. Bad weather is now impeding rescue efforts and aid delivery to the affected area. Overnight low temperatures in some places reached the freezing point, making things worse for those trapped under rubble or left homeless without food or supplies.
Toplamda 3419.
Severe weather conditions makes it difficult to transport aid to the regions. We stopped the movement of cars to and from Hatay, Kahraman Marash and Ad-Yaman, except for relief and rescue vehicles.
The operation is challenging. Rescuers are working hard to remove victims from the rubble, while cold and rain are rocking outdoors. Many families in Kram and Marak gathered around bonfires in anticipation of assistance in the bitter weather conditions.
Our houses have been damaged. We cannot go inside now. We haven't eaten anything since morning. Our children are very hungry. May God protect all of us.
We will be cold here until morning, freezing, getting wet. We have no place to go, no place to stay. My God, we don't even have a bed.
Turkey witnessed huge material and human losses in this earthquake. According to Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, 5,775 buildings had been destroyed in the quake, which was followed by 285 aftershocks. About 5,434 people were killed, and at least 20,426 people had been injured.
Algerian Prime Minister Ayman bin Abdurrahman received on Tuesday the Minister of the Interior of the State of Palestine, Zayed Mahmoud Mohammed Habarih. The Palestinian Minister of Interior praised Algeria's steadfast and supportive position on the Palestinian cause and the initiative of Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune for the reunification of Palestinian factions. The talks were also an opportunity to address the reality and prospects of bilateral relations and the latest developments in the Palestinian cause. Still with Palestine-related news, Palestinians attended funeral of 17-year-old teen Hamza al-Ashqar, who was killed by Zionist forces during a raid in the occupied West Bank on Tuesday. Relatives of al-Ashqar were seen crying at the funeral, mourning the death of their beloved son. According to Palestinian Health Ministry, al-Ashqar was shot in the face by Zionist soldiers who raided the northern city of Nablus around dawn on Tuesday.
He was eating. I prepared food for him because he asked me to, so I did. And then he slept and I slept too. And I woke up to find out that Hamza is dead. My sweetheart, he's still 17 years old. He wanted to work because his father is not financially stable. God bless him. He wanted to work, but he didn't. He died. He couldn't work. My sweetheart, he died. May he rest in peace.
Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs Mr. Mtala Mamra took part on Tuesday as a representative of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, in a high-level video conference meeting on governance in Africa, organized under the sponsorship of the African Peer Review Mechanism. This meeting, held as an introduction to the 36th Summit of the African Union, scheduled for Addis Ababa on February 18th and 19th, was devoted to examining the evaluation reports submitted by several African countries with a view to finalizing the annual report of the African Peer Review Mechanism on the state of governance in Africa. Still in Africa, Sahrawi President Brahim Ghali briefed on Monday UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the results of the 16th Conference of the Polisario Front, assuring him of its adherence to the frame of reference for the UN African Settlement Plan. Our own Zahra Farjani has more.
Western Sahara, on its path to decolonization, affirms its adherence to the terms of reference set by the UN African Joint Settlement Plan. Within a letter sent to the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, Sahrawi President, Secretary-General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, gave a detailed report of the outputs of the 16th Conference of the Polisario Front, assuring him that the Sahrawi people believe that the only viable solution to decolonize their country lies in exercising their inalienable right.
The 16th Congress noted with great concern the collapse and blowing up of the ceasefire agreement agreed upon in 1991 due to the military aggression launched by Moroccan occupation on the Sahrawi territory on November 13, 2020, as well as the UN unfortunate inaction, which left the Sahrawi people no other choice but to exercise their legitimate right to self-defense and to resume armed struggle. The joint settlement plan between the UN and Organization of African Unity remains the only agreement formally accepted by the Polisario and Morocco and unanimously recognized by the Security Council, which established the MINURSO.
Ghali also underlined the conference condemnation of the heinous repression and intimidation practiced by occupying Morocco against Sahrawi civilians and human rights activists, stating that the Polisario Front will continue its fight for liberation without deviating from the UN frame.
In this regard, we affirm the clear and strong position of the Polisario Front that will not participate in any process that would deviate from the terms of reference set by the joint settlement plan between the UN and the Organization of African Unity.
The Sahrawi people reiterate their position to continue their national liberation struggle on all fronts, aiming at achieving freedom, independence, and the full restoration of the Sadr sovereignty on its national soil.
Iran on Tuesday revealed its Eagle 44 underground Air Force base, which is the first of its kind, large enough to house fighter jets. This base is one of the country's most important Air Force bases, built deep underground and housing drones and fighter jets equipped with long-range cruise missiles.
Our enemies, who usually have wrong intelligence, shall sometimes see what we are capable of. This will help to maintain peace in the world and the region.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that Russia will continue helping Mali improve its military capabilities, a partnership that has prompted Western concern. Lavrov was speaking during a visit to the West African country where terrorists have waged a decade-long insurgency that has spread to neighboring countries. Western governments are worried about the involvement in Mali of Russia as part of its lost activity in the region.
Literally last year and at the start of this year, cooperation in military and military technical areas were given a new page in their development. A large consignment of Russian aviation technology was sent, thanks to which Mali's army was recently able to conduct successful operations against terrorists who remain active on Malian territory. A second consignment of aviation technology for these ends was delivered just recently, on January 19th. Minister, by choosing to strengthen cooperation with Russia, Mali also wants to show and demonstrate that we are not going to continue to justify ourselves for our choice of our partners. This is a Malian decision, a decision taken with responsibility.
In the Russia-Ukraine file, Russia confirmed that its forces are advancing towards the strategic cities of Bakhmut and Volgodar in the Donetsk region. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu stated that the recent operations took control of 7 towns, including Solidar, a city adjacent to Bakhmut, from which Ukrainian forces withdrew in January. For his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky underlined that a special attention is paid to Bakhmut.
Today, I held another staff meeting. Many matters have been discussed, and the key thing is the actions on front line. In the Donetsk region and in other areas, special attention is paid to Bakhmut.
Third day of mobilization against pension reform in France's capital, renowned opera house. Thousands of protesters took to the streets on Tuesday as the government-union standoff continues. The opponents of the pension reform intend to register their movement in the long term to convince the government to give up raising the legal retirement age from 62 to 64 years.
We also want to spend time with the people we love. After our retirement, the government should go in the field. They should come and see us at work. Then maybe they will change their minds.
To a different story now, Republican lawmakers took aim at President Joe Biden's handling of the economy and his response to a Chinese surveillance balloon ahead of his State of the Union address on Tuesday. This will be Biden's first address before a joint Congress with a Republican majority in the House of Representatives.
A balloon flies over the United States collecting data over every military base in America, and the president just sits by. Says he gave the order on Wednesday to shoot it down, but it didn't get shot down on Saturday. Did he send it through the mail service? Who did he give the order to? I thought he was the commander-in-chief. Has anybody asked the president that question? If you really gave an order to shoot down a spy plane from China on Wednesday and it didn't happen till Saturday, have you fired every single person that refused to obey the commander-in-chief's order? Those are the things that happened under Joe Biden.
To Latin America now. Landslide brought down houses and submerged streets in mud in southern Peru on Tuesday. Local authorities reported that the landslide, triggered by heavy rains in the Arequipa region, killed at least 15 people, including 3 children, while Peru's National Emergency Center said search and rescue efforts are ongoing. And finally in our news, the National Agency for Publication and Publicity in Algeria launched on Tuesday a new book on the history of Algerian diplomacy, in which the author harked back to the trilogy of political struggles, armed and diplomatic struggles. He also outlined the methods of diplomatic action and the Algerian interim government to influence public opinion, sensitize international civil societies, and support Algeria's battle of the United Nations.
The political and diplomatic battle for Algeria's independence book talks mainly about the Algerian diplomacy which carried out the demands of the Algerian Revolution veterans to the world and condemned the oppressive colonization with all its ways.
With this, our news comes to a close. For more, you can always visit our social media platforms. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.